Hello everyone, and welcome to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad in Wyoming. Today is June 3rd, 2022. This is Layout Construction Update number 31. I'm Mark Pruitt, General Rolling Stock Repairman. This month, you get just plain old me, no cheesy skit to start out with. I spent the bulk of this month on the Wind River Canyon, part of which you can see behind me. Other than that, I added a few pieces of rolling stock, did a little bit of track work and bench work, and also finally got started on that Sidem kit that I've talked about the last couple of months. This month, the update is going to be a little bit shorter than they have been the last few months. Count your lucky stars. Let's start out with the bench work and track work. Using some of the old bench work from the New Jersey layout, I built the first section of Worland. When I took this shot, I thought it was ready to install, complete with felt on the stringers where it would attach to the walls in the corner. But when I moved it into position, it came way too close to the furnace wall in the far left of this shot, so I had to notch the corner to provide clearance for operators to get into the area near the furnace and hot water heater. I don't like that folks will have to walk around these obstructions, but it's just something I'll have to live with. We all know how that goes. And that was it for this area until weeks later when I started adding new roadbed on Memorial Day. Just behind the water heater in this shot is by the compass the north, or in terms of division direction, west end of Thermopolis. This new roadbed leads towards Worland. Roadbed construction onto the new Worland benchwork continued the next day. This is as far as it's going to go for the next few months. I'll talk about why in the closing. You may be wondering why the benchwork is so much lower than the track in this area. That's because the Cody branch trackage will be running underneath Worland and Graybull along the peninsula. In this view of the track plan, the main line is the heavy blue line, and the Cody branch is the dotted green line. Depending on how this all works out, I may try to make some of the Cody branch visible here as a sort of short section of lower deck. The last couple of days I've laid track on this new roadbed. In an operating session late in June, I'll use this new track to nowhere as a staging track for an eastbound through train and as a destination track for a westbound train a bit later. To the right of that curve in the corner is where the Holly Sugar Complex will be placed. Now let's go over to where I spent the bulk of my time this month, Wind River Canyon. We were at this point in the canyon at the end of last month. The very south end had the first layer of plaster cloth on it, and I was ready to proceed northward into the canyon, or westward as the rail line is identified. Here's a short clip of me adding the second layer of cloth to that part of the canyon. This clip was a lot longer, but about 90% of it was my back as I was adding cloth strips. When I cut all that out, this is what was left. This was on May 8th. After finishing with the cloth, I began stacking the base for the walls farther up the canyon, including the second tunnel in the canyon, called Tunnel 4. The first tunnel as you enter the canyon on the way to Thermopolis is Tunnel 5, which the train crews refer to as Black Tunnel because of the color of the rock around the Thermopolis end portal. Later I'll show you a photo or two of the real canyon for comparison to the model I'm building. Here's a few progress shots of the canyon walls through the 17th of the month. I was really unsure of what I was doing here, but it seemed to be progressing pretty decently. To be honest, I'm still not real confident of what I'm doing in the canyon. If you look more closely at the right end of this last photo, you can see that I switched from a solid stack to a cribbing style of buildup of the canyon walls. This saved a lot on foam, which is going up in price along with everything else. By the time all the foam stacking is done, the right end will be as tall as the closer sections of canyon wall. I stopped with the foam because I pretty much just ran out of it. A couple days later, I switched from stacking foam to carving it back between the first two tunnels. Using a hot wire tool, I carved off most of the sharp corners and wound up with this. Final shaping will be done by the plaster cloth and subsequent layers of plaster and rocks. Plaster cloth would never stick well to the smooth surfaces the hot wire cutter left, so the next step was to tear up the foam surface using a Surform tool. It sure left a mess on the floor. Here's a shot of the canyon wall from the Thermopolis side. Doesn't look like much, does it? The vertical foam strips are there to act as a guide so that I don't encroach into the airspace above Thermopolis while stacking the canyon walls. About this time, I decided I needed to test the Chicago and Northwestern track to make sure I didn't block it with all those foam chunks I was installing. I vacuumed up the little foam bits the Surform tool left on the track and run a short train up and down the entire line. I backed the train down from the top with my John Allen track cleaning reefer leading the way. There were no obstructions, thank goodness. On the 23rd of the month, I taped over the visible parts of the Burlington tracks through the canyon. I was now ready to apply more plaster cloth. Over the next few days, I applied all the plaster cloth I had left. There's now about 45 pounds of plaster cloth on the canyon walls. In a couple months, I'll order more and continue on. Meanwhile, the 50-pound box of hydrocal I ordered should be arriving in the next day or two, so I'll mix up some pancake batter batches of that and paint it on the completed cloth. Then I'll mix up some thicker batches and begin adding rocks to the walls. That should eliminate the stair-step appearance of the walls that's obvious at this point. Just for comparison, here's a Google Maps view of the area between Black Tunnel on the left and Tunnel 4 on the right. The view is from almost the same perspective as that last photo of my canyon walls. Hopefully the shapes show some resemblance, even with all the compression I've had to do. Let me know what you think, good or bad, in the comments. So that's where I'm at in the canyon. As I said in the opening, I finally got started on that old Sidem structure kit. Here's the contents. I was going to use this as the Thermopolis produce and feed store, but now I'm leaning towards using it in Riverton as the flour warehouse. I painted all the walls and doors and windows with Rust-Oleum white spray paint. I don't know what color the building really was, but white was very common, so that's what I went with. Then I started assembling the structure using my Micromark magnetic gluing jig to ensure square corners. This kit was produced in the late 1960s, so all things considered, the slight warping of some of the walls was not bad at all. Here's the current state of the kit. Using the jig for assembly, along with the support of the floor and the center wall, everything is adequately square and straight. These old kits are a ton of fun to build, and the end result is a structure whose pedigree isn't obvious to the average kit spotter. One of the other things I started experimenting with this month is layout skirting. I bought a few yards of black cloth and clipped it up under Casper yarn. In this shot, it's about 6 inches off the floor. I'd sure like some feedback on this. I'm thinking it might be easier to just paint the benchwork legs rather than go to the expense of adding skirting all around, but that would leave all the stuff under the layout in plain view. Also, this might look better if it was pleated. So what do you think? Longer to within an inch or two of the floor? Pleated or not? Should I even put in skirting? The last thing for this month, I told you this update would be shorter, is the addition of some new equipment. I added 2 reefers, the second one a gift from my friend Dave in Basin, and another tank car. Normally I make it a rule to weather all rolling stock before it goes on the layout, but I made an exception with this tank car. I'll add weathering sometime in the next couple of months. I also won 2 passenger cars and a new locomotive on eBay. When Walther started producing special run passenger trains 20 or so years ago, one of their early offerings was a Burlington train. I didn't buy one at the time, and I've been kicking myself ever since. When you do find the occasional car for sale, they're usually around 80 or 90 bucks each. That's just a little bit too much for me. I got these two, never even out of the box from what I can tell, for about 40 bucks each. I've set them on the layout, but I still need to install road numbers, grab irons, and the like. From that same seller, I also got this little gem, a BLI Mikado in Burlington livery, very lightly used. I have 3 I bought new. You might recall the work I had to do on one of them a few months ago. BLI only made 3 different road numbers in Burlington, 5500, 5501, and 5508. With this latest acquisition, I now have 2 5508s. The mechanism is very stiff, as is to be expected from machinery that hasn't been run in years, but it does run and seems in fine shape. I'll clean and relubricate the mechanism and run it in. Then I'll renumber it, probably to 5503, which is the address I've programmed it with. Anyone out there know what font BLI used on these things? And that's it. May is in the history books. Other than work with the Hydrocal in the canyon, I'm going to focus on rolling stock and structures for the next couple of months. I have plenty of those on hand to build. I've been spending quite a bit on the hobby in the last few months, so I'm going to ease off the purchases for a while to let my budget recover a bit. Maybe lumber prices will drop also by August or September. No plywood sheets, no foam board, and certainly no locomotives. Oh, by the way, if you're watching on a computer, you may have noticed the little red steam logo in the lower right corner of the screen. If you move your mouse over it, it pops up with a very easy single-click subscribe button if you're inclined to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next month.